trading. We just ourselves 30 seconds more for people to join the call, and then we'll kick off. Our Introduction to Programmatic webinar. It's been created by people within the IAB Europe Programmatic Committee, and it's the first in a series of webinars which aim to educate and increase confidence in the area of programmatic trading. I'll give a few details about the management of the webinar and how you can use it to start with. So the will last about 50 minutes, 40 minutes for presentations and a 10-minute Q&A. So that you'll be able to download the recording and the slides after the webinar from our website. You'll get a follow-up email on that. So to start, let's take a moment to ensure that you're ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. Firstly, you should see a control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. You can access the panel by clicking on the double arrow button in the upper left-hand corner, or expand it clicking on the same button. There's a chat panel in here as well, and the Q&A panel. So if you have any issues to put forward by chat, please do that to me as the host, and I'll respond to those. You can submit questions for the speakers using the Q&A panel located near the bottom of the control panel. We'll answer your questions, or a couple of your questions, as many as we can, during the live Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you need to, during the session, you can raise your hand by clicking the small hand just above the chat panel. To drive that, technical issues should be submitted to the host in the chat panel, and questions for the speakers via the Q&A panel. So today we've introduced a poll to the webinar, so you'll have the opportunity to answer the following two questions. And you can also see the poll section within the right-hand area of the webinar management system as well. So the questions we've got for you today are: how would you describe your knowledge of programmatic? And do you think of the key benefits of programmatic? So you can see we've given you some multiple choice answers there. So if you want to have a think about those and answer during the webinar, that would be super. And providing we've enough responses, we'll announce the results at the end. So that'll be interesting to see that. Okay, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters. So presenters are Graham Wiley, who's Senior Director EMEA and APAC Marketing at AppNexus, Ben James, Chief Strategy Officer at Improved Digital, Oliver, Managing Director EMEA at Mediacom, Dave Frew, Programs Manager at IAB UK, Kik Zagan, who's Chairman of the Programmatic Task Force at IAB Netherlands and Head of Partner Business Solutions Benelux at Google, Simone Burnett, International Affairs and Event Consultant IAB Italy, and member of IAB Europe's Executive Committee and Board. Julie Simons, who's chair of the Programmatic Advertising Committee at BVW, which is IAB Germany, and a managing partner at MediaScale. So welcome to all our speakers, and thanks very much for your time on this today. So I'll give you a bit of an introduction now into the idea for the original programmatic white paper came from. So we conducted a study with Walk and AppNexus, which polled more than 600 publishers, advertisers and agencies across the front line of the advertising industry in Europe. And the study found that 89% of people believed that programmatic would have a significant impact on digital advertising. But at the time, I think many people in the industry have recognised that programmatic remains a confusing mix of acronyms, and there's lots of different potential solutions that are offered to the market. So our jobs at IAB Europe, we decided would be to clarify the offer of programmatic, to be able to answer people's questions, enable them to think about their own strategies, and help them understand really what programmatic could mean for them. Research also supported the theory that the inefficiencies in digital campaign planning were holding back digital's potential for enabling transactions to happen at scale. So one of the things that IAB Europe has really focused on is how to really facilitate the delivery of brand advertising across Europe and increase investment from brand advertisers. We brought together individuals and companies from across Europe today for you in this webinar, and also to produce the original white paper, so you can refer back to that. And also you'll find that we will be producing another white paper later this year called The Road to Programmatic, so look out for that. So now to hand over to our first speaker of the day is Graham Wiley from AppNexus. So over to you, Graham, to talk about programmatic trading.
Okay, thank you, Alison, and welcome everybody. We're going to start with what might arrive as perhaps the million-dollar question. What is programmatic trading? It's a question that comes up a lot through a series of conferences, white papers, discussion activities, and in reality it's close to a €2 billion question, which is the IAB Europe sizing of the programmatic market across Europe, and voted Word of the Year last year by the Association of National Advertisers in the US. So programmatic is the word that's on everybody's lips, but is strangely difficult to tie down and confirm definition. What we found is that in talking to members of the industry, in conference after conference, some words come out as people define programmatic and talk about programmatic. Words like automation, words like data, words like audience, words frequently associated with real-time bidding or RTB, which was perhaps the forerunner, early wave of programmatic. But as RTB adds deals and programmatic becomes direct, it's becoming harder to actually define programmatic as simply the automation of advertising. Life as a line item in a media plan. You'd often see a line item saying programmatic. And interesting, because programmatic is not a form of media. It's definitely not even a channel. It's a way of thinking about audiences and how you reach and engage with those audiences in a way that's appropriate for them in time. And particularly in the UK, where digital now accounts for half of marketing spend and half of display is being conducted programmatically according to data from IAB UK, it's less a line in the plan and the plan itself for many organizations. So yes, you can think about programmatic as the automation of advertising and using data to automate advertising, but I think this is the bigger picture and the bigger opportunity. And in my view, and one of the things that the team contributing to white papers has talked about is that how programmatic is an opportunity to make digital advertising, and by that I mean web, tablet, app, mobile, better, more relevant and useful for consumers, better delivering optimum yield for publishers, better helping brands cut through the noise and be more relevant. So it's about data automation, engage audiences, to be relevant at scale. But it's about the transformation of digital advertising and the transformation of display, where the driving performance of the brands. Through the period of work that the Programmatic Task Force has been looking at this and the discussion process around the white paper production, a lot of the initial focus of programmatic is actually using automation to drive efficiency. And that's really valuable. As you can see on the slide, there's a number of areas where programmatic is much more efficient than traditional buying. But it is part of the story. The real strategic advantage comes from turning that efficiency into a level of effectiveness and making that transformation of the way in which we work. And the myth of automation is that it makes things simpler. That's Programmatic version 1, the early stages of Programmatic. And the next white paper that the Programmatic Committee is working on about the road to Programmatic is really exploring what happens beyond that level of automation and how programmatic models develop to be strategically significant to businesses. And efficiency opens a whole world of possibility. There are people doing less legwork, that frees up more resources to do value add, but it requires different skills and different ways of leveraging data and insight to maximum advantage. So in the research that we did with Walk and IAB Europe and Nexus, we looked at what people believe are the primary drivers behind programmatic and the key benefits of programmatic. And one question we actually asked was, what drives advertising performance? In industry, we talk a lot about creative, but in this piece of research, it came back as targeting being the primary driver of digital advertising performance, programmatic being the biggest of being programmatic being that it improves targeting. So yes, as you can see here, programmatic is related to lowering costs or delivering better value, reducing wastage. But primarily, it's about what it does to change the way that consumers and brands interact and to improve targeting and real-time interaction. About the functionality of moving large amounts of data out of Excel in a way that can be automated and used at speed. It opens a world of opportunity for marketers and advertisers to think differently. And if you're on call now, I'd like you just to blink twice. And in the moment, a complete programmatic transaction is completed. For the concept of the page loading and the browser starting a potential buyer journey right to a transaction and delivery of an advertisement. So it really does need data to deliver at that sort of scale and speed. And it's a strong complement to what brands are doing in real-time marketing, particularly for Fool's Day, where many brands have been engaging across social media to drive real-time engagement. So, the research then looked at stakeholder adoption, and these numbers come from early 2014, so I expect when the research is updated by the Programmatic Committee this year, we'll see some substantial changes. It was the model of a classic disruptive innovation. Programmatic was good enough specialist media traders and media buyers to use it. And as marketers 18 months ago didn't really need to know about programmatic. But now, when programmatic is the plan and most of the media being bought is digital, what matters to marketers? And I expect we'll see a significant change in some of this data in 2015. And the IAB Europe Programmatic workstream has lots of tools and information to support that process. I want to study, but I'm going to draw out a couple of highlights because we're going to be talking about different geographies and how programmatic means different things in different markets. Interesting enough, out of that study, Germany emerged as having the most collaborative relationships between buyers and sellers. So you see a different form of programmatic or real-time advertising in Germany to what you see in other parts of Europe. In the UK, marketers have been using data more strategically in feedback loops around their programs, and for their greater change in the way that they use their programmatic data to inform not only their campaign but their business strategy. In retargeting is twice as important as in Germany. Actually, personalization is more important than any other market. And across those European markets, 7% of respondents were using programmatic, only 42% had a strategy. That was the widest between Germany, where there's the only market where more than 50% had a strategy, and France, where it seems to be more experimental in nature. Sailing, organizations talked about their challenges, and interestingly, across Europe, 25% of organizations cited internal resistance as one of their challenges in adopting programmatic, but in UK that number fell to 1%. And confidence is lower in the UK than in the rest of Europe. So you can see why defining programmatic becomes difficult. It's very nuanced. It means different things in different markets, and it means different things whether you're a publisher or an agency, brand advertiser. But perhaps universal agreement about it. Everybody's in universal agreement that it matters, as Alison cited in the numbers. The data supports that. When we look at the research, the reason why people are adopting it is competitive advantage, and everybody expects the move to mobile and the complexity that that brings to greater adoption of programmatic. So in the end, think about it just as the automation of advertising, but I would encourage you to think about it as an opportunity to rethink the way we use advertising to engage consumers, improve the yield on the assets that we publish, and deliver value as agencies.
Thanks, Graham. This is some useful things to think about in terms of interpreting our own particular angle on programmatic. So now hand over to Ben Crane from Improved Digital, who's going to talk about how programmatic trading is changing the operational side of advertising, planning and delivery. Over to Ben.
To participate. Today I'll be covering the operational considerations of programmatic trading, and just to say, one not underestimate the significance of the changes that it brings. First of all, taking the broadest view, I think we'll all agree that digital media writ large can be a lot of work. It's not always fun. Those of you who may have worked in other media, this fact is especially clear. I started in cable 3 times ago, and I still think that billion-dollar business was much less work than some of the smallest publishers I've worked with in digital. Comparatively, 28 cents of every euro digital goes to overhead and handling. That's just massive and has dramatic impact on, I would say, margins on both sides of the transaction, versus just 2 cents for television in this example. Some suggested and most agree that this has been an impediment to industry growth. I would say programmatic is changing much of that. It's certainly reducing that cost line. Programmatic, and as it's begun to reach critical mass over the last year or so, we're going to see what kind of impact this is having on the day-to-day. On the sales side in particular, it's driving pretty dramatic changes. The good news is, as programmatic is a different way of executing a sale, it's changing what we do at the end of the day, which is connecting consumers with the brands and products that they love. Well, and perhaps most importantly, programmatic trading is allowing those great sales professionals out there to do more of what they do best. It's reducing the time they spend on administration and operations, and giving them more time to focus on developing the right kinds of marketing solutions that their clients need. Again, it's making everyone involved in the process, end to end, if not happier, certainly more efficient. The drudgery, and I use that word in all its meaning, it magically disappeared. Programmatic takes a lot of the hard work out of the digital transaction. To your point about blinking twice, I know when I worked in ad ops, I moved that quickly. Next, let's not forget about revenue. That's why we're in this business to begin with. Excuse me. With programmatic, with private exchanges or public exchanges, over huge segments of sales, media businesses themselves can increase focus on high margin packages and custom deals and the stuff that simply can't be automated. Moreover, for publishers, programmatic is opening up access to entirely new revenue streams they may not have been able to reach with their direct sales team. A news publisher, for example, that is accessing consumer packaged goods spending programmatic by packaging up their audience and selling that in a way their sales team core. Finally, now does programmatic make process smoother for a huge segment of the typical media business? It also delivers optimization regardless of deal size, large or small, and speed and efficiency that no human team could replicate. And something that's particularly important, especially as we look at the long-term potential for media as other channels are digitized. We're going to be introducing the same optimization beyond just online as TV becomes addressable and digitally delivered. The implications really can't be understated. Now about ad operations. In my mind, these are the real heroes of the industry. I expect many of the folks on this call are either in operations or have their careers start there. Early on, as RTB and programmatic were coming on the scene, thought this automation was going to equate in pink slips, frankly, that ad ops teams would be cut in half and people would be let go. Instead, quite the opposite opposite is happening. It's creating entirely new opportunities. And while in some cases it does require new skill sets, it's interesting opportunities for considerable professional growth. In my mind, the ad ops role is more important than ever with the advent of programmatic, simply because of its technical nature and the fact that it's very specialized. Browsing on tracking of campaigns and while manning a fax machine, there's no emphasis on data collection, reporting, and performance analysis. That's the core of everything an operations team does today. However, it makes an ad operations team the first and last stop in yield optimization, and thus brings the back office, frankly, closer to the revenue than ever before. Next, it plans squarely within operations, a responsibility for active price management for all sales channels. And there, I'm not talking negotiated rates or even rate card floors, but instead, it's the price fences and the optimization across sales channels when you do have multiple revenue inputs competing for the same core inventory asset. Finally, at the center of it all is analyzing and optimizing the full process and tools for the entire organization. I've never seen ad ops people in my years in the industry were involved in every business decision, and that makes me feel really good. The back office has its day, and frankly, those pros are leaving their fingerprint all the businesses they work for. Looking forward, it's important to remember that programmatic, as some have put it, is a process and not a channel. Means it's core to your business's revenue strategy. It's not just that line item on the IO, as was the case 2 years ago, 18 months ago, 6 months ago in some markets. It's truly gone mainstream, and that's been driven largely by the buy side, frankly. And as announced a few weeks ago by a publicist or through a potential source, they're effectively consolidating programmatic with their mainline planning and buying operation. Quote, where programmatic expertise belongs. That's a very different perspective than we saw 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when programmatic did exist as an island and this kind of mysterious black box. It's core to how we conduct media sales transactions, and that's a permanent shift. It's not going to change. Given the shift, sellers are responding, and across the industry, both large and small are reconceiving their sales strategies. And frankly, they're moving up the programmatic development path as quickly as they can, or frankly, as quickly as their market requires. There was once a time when RTB as remnant was enough, so they simply weren't missing the boat. That's not the case. Publishers are now in an intermediate stage where they are experimenting with things like programmatic direct, take advantage of incremental revenue streams, finding opportunistic seams of revenue that they aren't seeing from the direct sales team. That's okay for some, but frankly not for long. For one that hopes to lead in the industry, they'll need to adopt advanced approaches and incorporate programmatic into their mainline business strategy as part of a holistic sales operation. Equal focus to the direct sales and programmatic, and instead of thinking about the barriers between those two, I think about them as competing sales channels. I'd like to use the example of Apple. I don't care if you buy their iPhone from their website, from an Apple store, or frankly from Vodafone. What never changes for Apple is the margin they get for the asset they're selling. They're letting the consumer, the buyer, access that product however they prefer. So on the sell side are adopting that same approach. Further, as a seller and a media owner thinks about their business, they need a single approach to optimization and really bringing into the waterfall. And I mean ending the discrete the barriers that exist between discrete pools of inventory, and instead a single pool of assets, myriad buyers, and you most effectively match those. Where the revenue comes, and an impression and a sale is a sale, and to approach the optimization of the business accordingly. So, in conclusion, Programmatic truly is changing every aspect of the people, process, and tools required to run a media operation. We're seeing is a once-in-a-lifetime market shift, frankly. It's a lot of hard work. It's incredibly exciting. What we're getting to is the framework that's going to manage media sales for the coming generation. Change consumer marketing in ways we can't imagine. We'll conclude. Thank you all once again, and hand it back to our host at the IAB.
Thank you much, Ben. I'd now hand over to Oliver Goetz from MediaCom, who's going to talk about the European programmatic trading landscape. Over to you, Oliver.
Can you hear me?
And clear.
Wonderful. Well, welcome on. I'm talking a little bit about the landscape, especially from a buyer's perspective. As you have just heard, there was an evolution, or is an evolution in the market. And programmatic clearly started on the performance end of the market, with real-time bidding, and often that's why RTB and programmatic are still confused. But as we have heard, programmatic is a wider concept. The reason it started there is because publishers sold remnant inventory, often in not fully disclosed manner. Advertisers wanted performance, especially in retargeting, where it's not so important whom you reach, it's just important that you reach them again. And so IAB was a big answer for that. And we saw a very good uptake of programmatic in the performance area and RTB. Has grown and has driven the majority of the growth, I would believe. But what's happening now is more and more brand advertisers are coming into adopting programmatic. They are a little bit scared of this landscape because they say, you know, we don't want to buy into a long tail in this thousands of sites on an open exchange. We want to know whom we're trading with. They're very concerned about quality of inventory. They're very concerned about brand safety, non-human traffic, etc. And at the same time, publishers have been holding back quality inventory and quality placements because they're very afraid of that available in an open auction where they don't control the price and they don't control whom they're selling to. That has been addressed with deals, and deals basically take the benefit and the beauty of programmatic advertising that we are executing in a media buy on an impression by impression basis, and combine that with what has really been driving the industry, which is long-term relationships between buyers and sellers, and clear understanding on both sides what is the inventory the buyer wants to buy and how that inventory trades. But also recognizing actually an auction-based buying model is not necessarily the most effective way for both. For the seller, it means that they don't know whether they earn money or not until a couple of milliseconds before the auction is closed. And the buyer sees no benefit of having large-scale budgets and giving long-term commitments to the publisher. So in the deals and in the direct environment, these elements of negotiation, of long-term commitments, etc., can be handled. That's what we see will be the major driver of the growth of programmatic landscape, because it basically means we're not looking at programmatic as a tactic at the end of the purchase funnel, but we're now seeing as programmatic as a method of executing media buys across the whole purchase funnel. That drives to another complexities, because we see that obviously the major driver of effectiveness in this whole landscape is the smart use of data. So advertisers have to be able to collect their first-party data, make it available for programmatic buying, being sure that it is collected in a brand-safe environment, and that's also a brand-safe method that is not leaking the data. They have to ensure that they are following privacy regulations. That requires significant organizational and technology investment. But once it's done, you can very increase the effectiveness of your media campaigns. And we see that the programmatic will just be the method of media execution, and that will drive the growth of programmatic very much. So when we look at the market, we saw that from 2012 to 2013, it more than doubled, up to 2 million euros spent in programmatic. And my expectation would be that this pace even increasing, because, as I said, a lot of investments have to be taken into infrastructure, into training people, into really understanding and leveraging technology, into training the whole organization. Once done, that nothing is holding a growth of investments back. And I think that many organizations, both on the sell side, on the buy side, and advertisers, are at that stage now. So I'm very optimistic about that. We see, looking across the European landscape, that the markets vary significantly across Europe, and that reflects a little bit the maturity of the market and the structure of the market as well. So the UK is really leading. They have 64 million people, of which 52 million are online, so very high online penetration and a very digitally focused lifestyle. And that's reflected also in the 2.2 billion programmatic display landscape. I'm not talking about programmatic, that will be covered later on. Looking at France, for example, we see that civilized country, the display marketplace is only half as big. That says something about consumers, that says something about the media landscape and also the strength of digital media channels. That's something about the speed of adoption from the advertiser side into digital. And that's also very apparent in Germany, which is my home, where we have more people, but are behind the UK when it comes to programmatic on display spend, partly because we are very cautious. But I believe once everything is settled and the infrastructure and everyone is happy, growth will be extremely high in Germany. With that, I'm handing back because we have the people representing the different countries later on in this call.
Thanks, sir. So I'm really delighted that we've now got 4 representatives of the markets to talk about what's happening at a local level. So you've got David from the UK, Kik from the Netherlands, Simona from Italy, and Julian from Germany. So let's kick off with David to tell us about what's happening with programmatic in the UK.
Awesome. Hi there, everybody. So as Oliver just showed you, programmatic in the UK was worth 2.2 billion euros. This is based mostly on a study that was commissioned by the Display Trading Council here in the UK to work out how programmatic was evolving over time. We did this through a series of interviews and surveys and asked questions on estimates for 2012. We put it into context of the 3 possible disciplines of mobile, display, and video, and came back with a number of 28% being traded programmatically, with an estimated 46% being traded programmatically by the end of 2014. Now, as we said earlier, I mean, we can easily see the trends here where video inventory is being held back as a premium property. The issuers are being more protective of this, and mobile shifting much more rapidly than other disciplines due to the innovation and the standardization of sizes available there. Now, the UK isn't a particularly special market in terms of maturity. It just benefits from the halo effect of investment from US companies. A survey by the IAB in the US in conjunction with Winterberry, they looked at 200 companies that had international presences, and in 2014 they established that the UK market was above average in terms of programmatic maturity, but by 2016 that will be almost 100% of the UK market. This puts the UK ahead of all other territories outside of the US. And as Oliver said, the drive for performance was really the starting point for programmatic coming out of monetizing remnant inventory, FAR Partners commissioned a study last year that pointed out quite astutely that commodity trading, when it kicked off, started off with the most premium commodities, oil and gold and things like that, whereas digital display has started off with this remnant, almost leftovers being monetized issue. So we are definitely seeing an increase in terms of premium inventory being brought into these marketplaces and additional benefits to branding campaigns. The IAB in the UK recently released content and native guidelines, which should go some way to standardizing some of the processes there. And we're seeing the evolution now, if that's the right word, with private marketplaces, large conglomerations of publishers banding together to offer these safe marketplaces with the PAGEA initiative using Rubicon technology, which is a global one, and closer to home, the IAB here in the UK has banded together to form what they're calling Alliance with AppNexus providing the technology platform. These are very similar to the Laplace Media and Audience Squared initiatives coming out of France. Now, as these prove themselves to be more successful going forwards, we can expect much more of a publisher base to jump on board there. Yeah.
Now go over to Kik in the Netherlands to give an idea about what's happening in that market. Over to you.
So my name is Kik. I represent IAB Netherlands as chairman of Programmatic Task Force. I also have a daytime job, which is actually at Google, looking after Benelux partnerships. So I'd like to discuss today something about how the Dutch marketplace has evolved in terms of ad spend, but also we'll share a little bit of some of the underlying trends. The interesting part being that we are actually about to give you guys a preview on what's supposed to be released this Thursday. This is the second time we're actually held this product ad spend study as a study from the normal ad spend study we've been doing for a couple of years. So anyway, so what you can see on your screen right now, the spend in 2014 grew to 143 million, and that's up 39% from 2013. Also, quite interestingly, if you look at the underlying trends, obviously, is that not just the actual volume that grew, but also the CPMs. So it's kind of interesting to see, volumes grew by 29%. A lot of new players entering the programmatic market space in Holland. Prices increased about 8%, an average of 68 euro cents. Another thing I would like to highlight you to is the of, let's say, web stuff. So whereas in 2014, 67% of all the product traded advertisements were actually based, and there's actually quite an uptake in you would expect in-app, but the actual place where what grew fast was phone and tablet, so mobile web and mobile tablet. Another point to take a look at is actually the way they're being traded. Now, the funny is there's this weird one happening here. I would say by no means the manual insertion order is actually diminished. I mean, it still represents the vast majority of spend and still a very significant chunk of volumes. The ad that actually grew fastest in programmatic was open auction. Open auction is about 80% of all of the programmatically traded advertisements in the Netherlands. The auction stood actually at about 12%, and we've seen a decline of fixed price automatic trading, so preferred deals, first look deals. If you then consider that in the Netherlands, about 30% of all the value is being traded programmatically, you can conclude that there's still a lot of room for growth for programmatic, where that programmatic guaranteed why introduced. transparency for people new to the game. There's a lot of ways of how to actually transact programmatically. A lot is actually managed by publishers. So in 2012, had about 15% of all traded completely. That's been diminished. I mean, there's a clear trend. It's only 2% now in 2014. So what happened? I mean, it's not to have full URL disclosure is now at 22% of overall. But the vast majority, 76%, is actually on top level domain. Forward for the next year, we actually do anticipate further growth of programmatic. We anticipate 28% in 2015 and 30% in 2016. So that leads us actually to two numbers. So 2015 will be 182 and 2016 236 million. I think I actually see a question. So would you kind of say when was the first publisher pool established in the Netherlands? I'm not sure if I totally get it. I think due to publisher marketplace, it's like the UK. I mean, UK has seen the daylight, and France as well, for publisher marketplaces that were initiated by publishers. A vendor was selected for providing technology. But there's also the conception in the Netherlands that there's actually a lot of value in the brand for publishers. So publishers are reluctant in sharing data across, I would say, other of their industry brothers. Also need to take into account that the Netherlands as a country and as a marketplace is quite concentrated. So there's an initiative from the Telegraph Media Group, actually former employer, actually sign up publishers internationally for what they call publisher market. But other than that, we don't really have any conglomerates or consortia happening there. That's me.
Thanks for picking up that question there. So let's hand over to Simona now to hear about what's happening in Italy.
Actually, I see that the basic trends are similar between market and market. Italy is slightly behind due mainly to the fact that the state growth of investments in programmatic are facing the obstacle of the reluctance from old-style publishers to adopt it. And it's, on one hand, a matter of culture, and on the other side is a matter of transparency and capability of getting together and organizing the publisher pools. That is not happening in Italy yet, and I'm afraid it's not going to happen for quite a while. The incremental quota of investments in programmatic is going to be driven, according to us, in the next 6-12 months, above all due to video investments and a little bit about mobile. We are a very big video investment country. Therefore, the combination of video and programmatic is going to make it grow. Nevertheless, IAB is very much involved in trying to thread the voice and the information and teach and make people learn about programmatic. Therefore, this part comes out from a joint work done by IAB Italy, the University of Milan, and Nielsen, and it was presented at last IAB Forum. And as you can see, on small numbers, the market is growing a lot year on year. And so far, in 2014, it represents 10% of the display advertising, and we are forecasting that it's going to double by the end of 2015. Therefore, the activities that we are doing locally is to keep up the level of attention and programmatic is first of all to implement and localize the white paper that was written together inside IAB Europe. We are going to produce a video to better explain how Programmatic works, and unfortunately we need to produce one in Italian because language is also a barrier for many of the salespeople in this market. And we're going to have a seminar, a vertical seminar in October. And usually our seminars are attended by 1,000 people, more or less. We hope to have investors, but also sales houses and old-style publishers in order to convince them that this is the way we need to go. And we are also doing one-to-one training inside companies. So overall, still numbers, growth, but influenced mainly by video and mobile, but still a lot of barriers in terms of adoption. That's how
Simona. Now let's go over to Germany to hear from Julian. So Julian's the chair of the BVDW Programmatic Committee. To you, Julian.
Yes, hello everybody. If you look at the numbers here, 2014 for Germany, then you see that the German market has just a 16% share in programmatic compared to the whole display market, which is a pretty small number. Actually, one thing to the number, this is an estimation because there are not any proven numbers right now. So these 16% is a number published by the online media agencies in Germany, based on the committee of the online media agencies in BVDW, and it shows that the German market, with about 250 million euro spent via programmatic, is still a small market compared to the other European market. This basically there are, as Oliver already said, there are three main topics which keep that volume pretty low. The first one is that we have a very strong publisher market still in Germany, and these publishers did not do any kind of effort in offering their inventory via RTB, because they didn't believe that with RTB they could kind of reach any kind of high price for their placements. That's why they didn't offer it. The second point which keeps that market still pretty low is the lack of available data which can be bought or which can be used next to first-party data. And there the German market is very prospective and very restrictive, which kind of changes right now, and there are more players offering valuable data today, so that will change the market in a certain way. The third thing which keeps it below is the unsecureness of the quality of the placements offered via RTB. So these 3 points kept that market pretty low in comparison to all of the other European markets. So there is actually today, or during the last 12 months, I would say there is kind of a game changer with Programmatic Direct, which on the one hand gives the publishers a chance of having kind of secure campaigns and kind of a campaign control by leveling a certain kind of pricing, and also being able to guarantee a certain kind of volume to their advertisers. That's why they open their inventory into Programmatic Direct, and especially they are more open for offering exclusives like advertisers big formats and also more video formats. So this will change the market in Germany during the next 12 to 18 months dramatically. That's why we are believing that the increase will still be in a lower way than it is in the other countries, like for example the UK. But it's compared to the last years, it will dramatically speed up also in Germany. So looking to the next year, we will have let's say two main topics. The first topic is kind of a compulsive control along different devices, being able managing campaigns not just on display or mobile, but on a compulsive way via RTA and via certain kind of platforms which establish right now in Germany. The second one is the opening of the big market duopoly 7.1 and IP Germany plus Google, YouTube for the whole video market, which especially brand advertisers will lead to drive into the programmatic advertising together with agencies, which will speed up the whole market development. So we believe in 2016 we will have at least market share of about 30% driven through programmatic, which probably is even very conservative assumption. So if the Germans decide to do something, they do it very structured and in a very tough way. So right now it seems that we are speeding up, and probably talking to you all in 12 months, the view on the German market will look a little bit more like in the other countries. But so we will go there. Probably it for the German market today.
That was really interesting, talking about the development of your market. I'm just going to summarize really quickly while everybody can see a few points there on the screen. I think we've heard some great ideas today about how to think about programmatic, how it's developed, looking at the operational efficiencies to be gained via programmatic, and getting an insight into some markets in Europe. And one of the things that I would urge everybody to do is to stay in touch with this webinar series, because we're going to be offering more webinars to give you insights on further areas and really getting into how to develop your own programmatic strategy. Let's just take a look now at our poll results. So would you do a couple of questions? Would you describe your knowledge of programmatic, and what do you think are the key benefits of programmatic? Well, I'm pleased. Actually, I shouldn't say I'm pleased to say. Most of the most popular answer on your knowledge of programmatic was basic. So clearly we need to do more of these webinars to help people learn a bit more. The key benefit of programmatic that people chose was improved targeting. So very much for your participation on that. As I mentioned earlier, we will be rolling out a survey on attitudes from the publishing community, advertisers and agencies to programmatic. So please look out for that, because we'd very much value your opinion in a broader and much more complex survey. So I think we've just got a couple of minutes for a final couple of questions. So one on the development of private marketplaces. So Graham, do you just want to say a couple of words on how you see private marketplaces developing?
Yes, just a couple of observations around development of private marketplaces. So private marketplaces allow buyers and sellers to collaborate more closely and really allow for better quality of inventory and better data shared between two parties who have some form of relationship outside of the programmatic world. Publishers, that gives them a greater level of control over their yield, and agencies, it allows them to plan strategies more effectively. One of the great stumbling blocks for private marketplaces has been actually getting the technology to a point where it becomes really effective in that environment, right through, as programmatic marketplaces develop a programmatic direct offering. But I think I'll just leave you with one soundbite. When we talk about efficiency, deals used to be done over lunch and would take several days to negotiate and perhaps several days more to be set up. When they first came to the programmatic world, deals actually took 16 steps and 6 days to get up and running and troubleshoot. And inside an environment, pretty much across the programmatic world, it's possible to do a deal in under 6 minutes at 5 steps. We talk about translation and programmatic, whether you're in a public marketplace or a private marketplace, or whether it's programmatic direct or time bidding, it's about using the technology to allow you to put the emphasis away from legwork on actually building those lasting strategic relationships between brands and consumers. And marketplaces are an extremely valuable tool for publishers to bring their rich context and data to that conversation.
Thanks, Graham. And one final question, possibly for Oliver. So it's another question about premium inventory, and Jim talked about the limitation of premium inventory in Germany. Could you give any observations on how you see that playing out across other markets?
I think they described that publishers are reluctant, and that's to put inventory into buying models that they're not comfortable with. So I think it's very much linked to the private marketplace discussion, because what we say is across all markets that when we go to a publisher and say, this is client A, this is what client A is buying from you, and now we want to execute that buy programmatically, that basically there is no limitation of doing that. So I think this is mainly the fact that that relationship and the control on both sides is seen as very valuable, and that has been holding back publishers on making some of the premium inventory available. I want to add something to what Graham said, however, is that and I see that's the future. The future is these individually negotiated deals. The future is highly customized packages. I do believe everything that can be ad served will be sold automatically eventually, but actually that is not decreasing complexity but increasing complexity. And when we heard about time savings and etc., I think they will be eaten up by the fact that with all the data that's available, all the targeting options, all the ways of customizing media packages and doing different types of deals, actually our ability to optimize on a much more granular level is getting much stronger, and that will lead to the need of doing it and putting in more effort on the segmentation of data, more effort on the execution and optimization of the media buy. So yes, maybe there's a small saving on the transactional side, but it's like search. I mean, everyone knows that search is a very simple market. There's one seller, if we're honest. There are 3 ad formats. It's all brand safe environments. And still everyone knows that executing or spending €1 on search is much more time consuming than spending €1 on traditional display. And the reason is because there's so much more data and so much more ability to optimize on a granular level. And that will also happen on programmatic. It's great because we will get access to all inventory, also the premium stuff, but it will make everyone's life, well, it will fuel a lot of jobs, let's put it positively.
Well, it's a great positive point to finish on, Oliver, so thank you for that. So just to round off today, I'd like to thank all of our presenters, Graham, Ben, Oliver, David, Kik, Julian, and the IAB Europe team behind the webinar. And I'd like to remind everybody that you'll be able to download the slides and also the recordings on the IAB website, and do get in touch with us if there's any further questions or topics you'd like to suggest for this series. Thank you very much.